Welcome back to the Visit Vallejo Podcast. This time, in celebration of California Craft Beer Week, we're going to be visiting some more of our amazing local businesses to find out where to get the best brews in town. Make sure to head on over to the California Craft Beer Week website for exciting virtual events and tastings near you. Cheers!
I'm Kent Fortner. I'm a Scorpio.
Ryan Gibbons, Pisces, coming up here soon. Maybe a Pisces because I'm on the cusp.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, well, that's what these
One
podcasts
of the few
are
things
about.
I didn't know about you.
Yeah, you get to learn some things. Kent, where are you from?
I'm from Kansas, Ryan.
You are?
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
And I'm a disappointed Kansas City Chiefs fan right now.
Understandably so.
But I am a proud product of the Midwest, multiple generations, wheat farmer.
Fantastic. Yeah. And
yourself, Ryan, where are you from? I like this. We get to interview each other.
It's great. I born and raised in Maryland, and I as well am upset that the Washington football team didn't make it all the way through, and they don't have a mascot anymore. But grew up in Maryland and moved out to California in 2002. So, and settled in Napa Valley in 2005.
So I think I could speak to the origin of the company a little bit.
Sure.
And to do that, we actually have to go pre-beer, and we have to go from grain back to grape.
And the one thing I realized, we didn't introduce our titles. What do you do for Maryland Brewing Company?
I call myself the founder, and this morning I took out the trash. I tried to figure out if we can get an electric vehicle delivery wagon. I hired an administrative assistant person, and
there was some grants and loans in there at some point at this point, right?
Yeah, no, but I think I basically handle kind of the admin and marketing side of things.
Fantastic.
And Ryan?
I think we call myself the co-founder, more the janitor, if you will, just mostly cleaning up messes and I guess also making them. So it's at least rewarding to have the full circle. But I do, work on the beers and the offerings that we have for retail and really just keep the trains on time as best we can during these times.
I think Ryan's underselling himself. He brews all of our beers. He runs all the food and beverage side of things. He really makes it all make sense at the end of the day and makes it go. And it's been an amazing partnership that we've had, and we constantly, I refer to him as my work wife, and we constantly, I'm just, every time we come across a decision, I would say 85% of the time we're on the same page. Yep. And the times we're not, we're usually a beer later and a long conversation. Even if we agree to disagree on something, we pick a path and we both pull on the oars in the same direction. And I've had 4 or 5 partnerships in my career, and nothing has come close to this, which has been really fun. And it was built out of friendship. Ryan and I are both winemakers by trade. I still have a small wine brand up in Napa called Road 31 Wine Company. I moved down here in order to buy one of the old officers' quarters on Mare Island because we had basically been priced out of Napa Valley, but I still had my wine project up there. But fortuitously, Ryan worked at the winery where I made my wine because I rented some winery space, and we basically got to be fast friends. My God, it's almost 20 years ago probably now.
Yeah, every 6 months adds 2 years, and it feels like it. That's for sure. I was going to say, I wanted to pull on the thread a little bit with Valentine's Day coming up. You want to talk about how you proposed to me? Another story, another podcast. But I appreciate that, Kent. And, the best way I explain our relationship, we're the 2 owners, just the 2 of us as far as Mare Island Brewing Company goes. But in the simplest form is I'm in charge of making the money and he's in charge of making it make sense. So it is a really great partnership. And as far as the relationship and working relationship, we really complement each other. We don't compete with each other. And we do have, I think, a very like-minded vision for not just Mare Island, but Vallejo as well. We're both raising our families here in town. And so there's a lot of things besides the history that we put into the brand. We're looking to the future of Vallejo as well here.
So yeah, we, after that sort of long friendship in the wine biz, and Brian was going all over the world making wine. I was going all over the country and also all over the world making wine. And after I'd moved down here, I was looking around Mare Island. It was this pretty amazing history on Mare Island. And a couple of people were like, well, why don't you move your winery down to Mare Island? And I said, well, I guess because my customers, the penny loafer, ascot wearing folks, they like to see fine vines in a pastoral setting. They see these cranes over on Mare Island and they're like, what the hell are those cranes? But I said, but my brewing buddies, I got a lot of brewing buddies, they're like, check out those cranes. Those things are awesome. So I wrote a business plan for a brewery. I'm kind of a closet brewer, but I didn't have like commercial brewing experience. And meanwhile,
fermentationist.
Yeah, I mean, we're both fermentation guys. But meanwhile, Ryan, you want to talk about what you were doing during that time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was kind of around the same time, fortuitously timeline wise, but I had gotten back from traveling around making wine. I'd just gotten back from Bulgaria at this time and decided to settle down in Napa and try to find my great next wine project. And unfortunately, it was the downturn of the economy, and a lot of even Davis degree winemakers were not getting jobs. And I had just built my resume on experience and just a killer resume from that. And so I really went back to just waiting tables in Napa. And so Kent and I, we'd stayed in contact, but I just, was trying to figure out what to do with my fermentation background in Napa, 2,800 miles away from my family. I didn't move out here to be a waiter, as ultimately. So I shopped my resume around and went over to a small brewery in Petaluma, being California Beer Week. You guys may have heard of it, called Lagunitas, a brewing company.
Small.
And it's small. One of the things we always say in wine that it takes it takes good beer to make great wine, because at the end of the day of working really hard on the crush pad, you're definitely crushing some nice crisp beers, and craft beers is a good transition. So, with the background and knowledge and the way the wine business was going at the time, I took the resume to Lagunitas, and they at first were like, okay, wine guy, I don't know about that. A little persistence, and then I got a full-time job as a brewer and kind of cut my teeth and kind of learned the other side, as Kent says, went from grape to grain at that point.
So we reconnected. I think we were at Soda Canyon Deli for lunch.
It was either Soda Canyon Deli or the Oxbow, I think.
Yeah, we went to coffee at Oxbow. And I'm like, how is it working for the brewery world? And Ryan's like, I love it, but I wish I was making a little more money and working for myself. I'm like, I got this business plan sitting on my shelf. And so we dusted that off, and we have some great pictures of the first 5-gallon brews we did. And we just it's something that we have as a business philosophy, is like, we try to dream big. And we spend a little bit of time dreaming big. Then we try to think, how can we test small? And so we make a small beer and we sell it. And if it works really well, then we invest in it and we're off to the races. And it's been a business philosophy that's served us really, really well. And it's been so nice because the marketing and the admin stuff comes pretty second nature to me, because I've done a lot of this in the past. But the brewing world was something I just did not have that bona fides. And Ryan comes over from Lagunitas, and suddenly, you're trying to get a hold of the latest designer hops, which no small brewery can do. But Ryan came over from Lagunitas, and so he's got the contacts that we need to go get what we need to make hydraulic sandwich IPA.
Yeah. Mare Island Brewing Company. That's it.
That's it.
All right, thanks.
No, that's great. So maybe let's talk about some of your early history in the food industry. Like, what made you guys want to, go into the beverage industry, but maybe you kind of started out as
I'll take it on first, I guess.
Ryan's got a way better resume on this than I do, frankly.
I don't know if it's better or for worse. We'll go with it. But, I worked in restaurants since I was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I started as a dishwasher in a high-end restaurant in my local town and worked there for 10 years. So I moved up from, at 16 years old, I was, in 10th grade, 11th grade, and I was making more money than, some other people it did in a week at one night at the restaurant. So I ended up being a back waiter for 2.5 years there, and then training all the waiters, turned 18, started waiting tables. And so I really went through the gamut at this place. And restaurants have always been the backbone of kind of the thing that has paid my bills and my dreams of being a winemaker or a brewer someday. And in fact, I even made a small photography company that, I really enjoyed the artistic side of not just brewing and fermentation, but life. And was taking photos, and I named the company A Way Out Productions because it was my way out of waiting tables. And kind of, I joke about it now because we have almost 3 restaurants now in the company portfolio. So, I've always worked in and out of restaurants, and a lot of my old employers up in Napa, some really great restaurants and good friends, are now actually serving our beer. So it's kind of that's another kind of good full circle moment for me to be able to have served, guests up there, and now they're serving our beer to the guests as well. So, and then your background?
Well, I have a much longer history in restaurants, but just because I'm older than Ryan by 10 years.
If you hadn't noticed.
But but I have, I actually started out washing dishes as well, and did a lot of time as a busboy, et cetera, and all through college. And then I ran a wine bar and wine shop in Boise, Idaho, of all places. But then I went into the wine business right after that, from winemaking, sales, general management, branding, marketing, things of that nature. And I think that's where we really complement each other, because we really understand the restaurant business well. We both actually said we wouldn't go into it, and now we're into it in a huge way with 3 tap rooms.
Deep.
But Ryan really understands the sort of foodie side of things really, really well. And I kind of
experience. I think that craft beer, I think it can invoke, and food definitely needs to be a part of that, especially how we've designed our beers. Sorry, didn't mean
Correct. Correct. And so it's been, that background has been really solid for us. And, honestly, we opened up the first tap room, and it was kind of like, well, let's do this. It was such a wild success. We opened another one, and now we're opening another one. And it's really become the core of what we do a lot, because I think we complement each other and see it in the same light.
Yeah, great. So with that, let's go kind of into the menu and your beers, and kind of, if you want to talk about the inspiration behind.
Sure.
You guys,
I guess maybe I'll just kind of start as the basis of the beer and what we, how we look at what a great craft beer is. And that's really the essence of how we design everything. And we come at it from a winemaker background. So we're really looking for balance, and we're really looking for something that actually goes well with a meal, not just now don't get me wrong, we make them, but not just a 9.5% IPA that's just loaded with hops and completely destroys your palate and you can't taste anything after that. So, we really want to make sure that not only is there flavor, but there's balance, there's mouthfeel, there's a pairing with the food. So, I've worked in Michelin star restaurants, and we've served, caviar, $300 ounces of caviar at lunch. And clearly, we weren't trying to do that with a brewing company or a brewing brand. And also, we wanted to kind of elevate what was offered in Vallejo at the time. So in essence, I got to say that the best way to describe our Ferry taproom food is more of like just an elevated pub style. It's all really quality ingredients, done very well, all made on in-house. Nothing's frozen except for maybe the French fries at best. And and our chef, actually, we brought him on. He was the executive sous chef up at Charlie Palmer in Napa. And so he really, he's worked in all of the fine restaurants through Napa. He worked at Bricks. So he really has a good understanding. And then our food and beverage manager, Sudana Olden, she comes from the background of food. And so she really has that understanding. So kind of between myself, chef, and his ability and vision, and Sudana being able to bring it all together, we really, are trying to use that as a central focus, and the beer kind of brings it through. Right now, as we were talking about our locations, with the Coal Shed Brewery, we now have the Pie Wagon food truck over here. And then the location that Kent was talking about we're working on is our new Benicia Tap House on First Street in Benicia. It hasn't opened yet, but our idea from the culinary standpoint is that the experience of Mare Island Brewing Company at each location would be the same. We have the same, the beer. We would definitely talk about the history, promote Vallejo in the Bay Area. As far as the food at each location would be the differentiating factor. So, if you wanted to go to Mare Island Brewing Company today, maybe you want to get the bread bowl clam chowder that's offered at the Coal Shed Brewery, or grab the French fries that you can get at the Ferry Tap Room, because that's where the fryer is. Or once we get to the Benicia Tap House, we're looking to do more small plate, higher end bites kind of an experience with the location. So I guess that's kind of more or less where we combine everything, the balance of the beers, the great culinary experiences and food with our team, and then the location and the community that supports it.
And I think that the concept behind the beers, let's face it, if you go back 20 years, half the people made good beer, half the people made really, really bad beer. These days, if you don't make good beer, you don't even get started. And so differentiating between good beer and great beer and something that is, iconic and forges a new path it's not easy these days. And it's frankly not even something we necessarily try to do. We just try to make really killer, consistent beer day in, day out. I think one of the things that I'm proud of that really, I think, sets us apart is our branding. And it's a very conscientious thing. And that is that, I had moved to Mare Island, had this really incredible experience of renovating an old 1916 officers' quarters on Mare Island. It's right across from the old Naval Chapel that was built in 1901. And just started learning all the history of Mare Island. And the history is insane. You could go on for hours, days, weeks about the history on Mare Island. And people are fascinated when they see this, they hear this stuff. And so one of the things we decided is that we're going to have a brand. And one of our sort of guiding principles is if we took one of our cans of beer from a label design standpoint and set it down in somebody from 1950 who was sitting on Mare Island, we don't want it to be a foreign object to them. So in some ways, we're trying to be hip by going old school. And so when you look at our cans on the shelf, you're going to have a bright orange can over here from somebody else and a flaming woman on a label from somebody else. We try to be almost kind of the black tie throwback is what we're looking at. And all of our beers have names that are connected to the style of beer, but are more connected back to a historic story on Mare Island. And I think that we've found these customers who are dedicated, almost rabid, who are like, oh, give me a Mare Island brew. Now I need to hear the story behind the name. There you go. And they just get engrossed in this. And, there's a lot of people who are like, hey, it tastes good. Give me another. I don't remember the name. And that's fine. We make good enough beer to cover that. And we make good enough food that they want to drink that beer. But I think our core customer, they have so much appreciation for our attention and our celebration of detail with Mare Island and the incredible naval history here.
Yeah, just to even add on the kind of label and packaging design and versus what's out in the market now of, Ken said the flaming woman on the front, or, how can you hide the, cuss words on there in some way. One of the things we also, we're representing the Navy, the United States Navy. So we've got clean military lines. We have 5-6 generations of families here in town that are very proud, across the country, but are very proud of the work that, their grandmother, their aunts, their fathers did on Mare Island. And so the responsibility, when Kent and I started this, is we joke around, if this was Kent and Ryan's great brewing adventure, nobody would care. It wouldn't matter. But the fact that it's Mare Island Brewing Company, it's, we have a larger responsibility than whatever ego, we would have ever put into a brewing company. So we really look at it from the community aspect, the history. I don't know if you want to talk about the process, how we name beers and through the whole process.
Oh, that would be great.
It's not just a fly on the wall. Okay, let's make that.
Yeah, I'll walk you through an example of, we do this thing called Brewers Boot Camp where Ryan actually takes 6 to 8 people and they actually do a beer. And one of the first things they do is sit down and taste different styles, decide what style they want to do a recipe development, everything else. But then I sit down with them and say, okay, we're going to come up with a name. And I explain the process. And so typically what we do is, let me give you an example. Three Pigeons IPA, for example. We were looking at doing a new IPA and we go down to the museum and check in with the museum librarian and the executive director of the museum. And we're like, hey, we need another name of a beer. And we're kind of looking through all this stuff. And so we just start thumbing through the pages of Maryland. You don't need to go more than 2 or 3 minutes and flip 2 or 3 pages, and you're going to find something really cool. And so one of the things that came out of this was there was a pigeon coop or a pigeon loft or a pigeon cote, depending on how you say it, on Mare Island that predated all of the radio. And what's interesting is Mare Island was not just the shipbuilding operations for the West Coast, they were also the communications hub for the West Coast. So they raised these carrier pigeons up on the top of the island, and every ship that left the island, they gave them 3 pigeons. And they would write a report and tie it to the leg of the pigeon and release one at the Golden Gate Bridge, outside the Golden Gate Bridge by about 20 miles. And then the record for a pigeon to come back was 452 miles that a pigeon flew back from sea to come back here to deliver one-way communication. well, you hear these stories and you get goosebumps. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so we're like, 3 Pigeons IPA. And then we go design
and then from the brewing standpoint, it's like, okay, 3, let's think of, let's get 3 hops in this one. And so, obviously the brewing atmosphere is just dominated by IPAs. And so, we didn't intend on being a house of just throwing out IPAs all the time, but we wanted to kind of make an IPA that was different from our popular hydraulic sandwich, which is very, very fruity, guava, kind of papaya, nice tropical notes to it. And so with this one, with 3 hops, we wanted to use some of the C hops that Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. And this is kind of more of a throwback IPA to like the 1990s, like back when IPAs first came out, and it wasn't just how can we make it hazy, creamy, and explode with aroma. It's really classic, clean, crisp, still has some good weight, and at 6.4%. So, we kind of just banter these ideas back off each other. I've got this name, maybe this name. And then we start working on the icon, which is always a real fun part of bringing it together. And speaking of the 3 Pigeons, which we just released on Monday this week, it's the second. We released it first last year, and this is the second time for it coming back. This is actually the first label we use 2 colors on.
It is.
So we have we've got a little bit of purple in the pigeon's necks and a little bit of green, but so that's the most color pop so far you've seen in a Mare Island Brewing Company label.
So interestingly, I'll preview. We do these Yardbird as our beer club, and we do these Yardbird parties too. It's going to be 3 times this next year, and we always do a game at the Yardbird party, when it's normally a secret. But this upcoming Yardbird party, we've actually found a pigeoner. We found a pigeon loft up in Napa, and the gentleman is bringing his pigeons, and the Yardbirds will bet on the pigeons, and we will release them from here. It's about a 15-20 minute flight back to Napa, and we're going to have a video screen set up, or a camera set up where the loft is up in Napa, and we're going to have a big screen that it streams to here at the brewery, and whichever pigeon crosses the line first up there is going to be the winner.
That's
so
awesome.
We always take these things and sort of play them all the way through to the Yardbird party and everything.
So how do you become involved in the Yardbird?
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
Appreciate that question. I mean, our Yardbirds are our most rabid fans and our closest friends in the brand.
What do we call them Yardbirds for?
Well, great question, Ryan. The Yardbirds was the maybe not so complimentary moniker for any non-military person who worked on the Mare Island Naval Ship Yard. So they called them Yardbirds.
So civilian. Yeah.
So the civilians. So if you want to become a Yardbird, you just sign up and you get 2 shipments, one in the spring, one in the fall, of a case each. And it's a lot of our new beers, et cetera. And then we do a special holiday shipment at Christmas time, which is 3 of our really high-end reserve level beers. So it's basically $250 a year. You sign up, you get 3 shipments of beer, and you get invited to some really killer parties, and you get to come bet on some pigeons.
Yes, pigeon betting.
To fly back when you want to.
Nice. Yeah. I've just been talking to a lot of different restaurants and beverage things through this podcast. I'm seeing this kind of flow from Napa down to Vallejo start to happen. We have Napa Smith, and you guys, you want to just kind of talk about that, and kind of, it almost is like a reversal.
Sure.
Almost, you'd think.
I mean, anything when you're trying to, I guess, maybe either get into an industry or start a business, you really want to look where there's the need, I suppose. And, one of the things coming down from Napa and Vallejo is it was pretty much a food desert, I would say. I don't want to go that far. There's definitely some restaurants that are doing great and have been here for quite some time, with Gracie's and Zio Fredo's and some of the Sardine Can, Napoli's, some staples that have definitely been doing fantastic things locally, but there's a lot of room to grow, I guess. And, if we would have, one, obviously the brand being Mare Island Brewing Company, this is our locale. But if we would have started and opened up in Napa, one, it would have been the cost of entry would have been, it wouldn't have happened. Two, the competition up there is extreme. And so down here, we can actually be involved in the community and not have to be in the rat race of that kind of restaurant industry that it can be in the Napa world. I know, obviously, since I came from it, it's very enjoyable, but at the same time, we actually can make a difference here in Vallejo. And through the brand, through the food, through the employees that we have on staff, there's more of an impact that we've been able to make. And I think it would have been much harder in a place like Napa or San Francisco, where it's a kind of a rat race. Here we could make a difference.
I think there's an interesting dynamic that so many people who work in Napa in the food industry can't afford to live in Napa. So a lot of them lived in Vallejo. When we put together the brewing company in the first tap house, all these people came down and said, hey, I'm working at Bricks, or I'm working at Angel, or I'm working at these really nice restaurants up in Napa. But man, if I could end my commute and work for you guys, and you guys are doing the quality of food that I want to be looking at. And there's a little bit of a sort of patriotic industrial grit to Mare Island and to Vallejo that I think that resonates with a lot of people. And Napa can be, we love it. I mean, I've made my living off of it for years. It's a really amazing place to visit, and it's at the highest end. It's just an amazing thing. But there's something cool about getting back to basics and basic ingredients and making something really. And when you have this workforce that's like, hey, don't have to drive up 29. Sign me up. Yeah. And that's where, our chef is a Vallejo native.
I was just
son.
going to say, I didn't mention that earlier, but, Chef David was born and raised in Vallejo, and that was his thing. He always he kept coming to the tap room as a customer, and he said, this is so cool what you guys are doing. And he said he felt like it was something he wanted to be a part of because he could bring his talents back to Vallejo to a place. And, so,
and his ancestors worked on Mare Island, actually. So it all came full circle. And with it comes this amazing talent that he, cut his teeth up there in all the fine Napa restaurants and came straight to us from Charlie Palmer. And it's been fantastic. And it's just, I think Vallejo has long waited to realize its potential as a neighbor to Napa. And I think it's finally starting to happen. And that just feels really good. And for us to have been, I think, a part of that and maybe part of the spark of that, that feels really, really good as well. And it's neat to see what else is happening around town and to have Napa Smith down here. We'd love to see 12 breweries down here. We'd love this to be the brewery gateway to Napa Valley, or as I like to say, Napa Valley is the gateway to the brewery world of Vallejo. That would be the ultimate thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's talk a little bit about the pandemic and the challenges you guys have faced.
Do we have to?
Well, we don't have to do anything.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
We just had our monthly manager meeting yesterday, where we bring all of our managers in, and one of the things I said there that I still think holds true is, last year was a very defining moment for us as a company, not just for, everybody obviously in their lives and what we've all gone through, but for a company, for what we were able to do and the sacrifices that our employees had to endure, was incredible. And the things that we have been able to make on the other side of it to set us up for success has just been incredible. So, the having to retrain the customer was very hard, and everybody has expectations, and the customer in everybody's mind is always right. But there's things and there's limitations to what we could do as service. So it was an adjustment, but it was one of the things we continued to stress to the staff that, everybody's going through this. So we have to add more compassion to our situations. You have to come with a little more patience and everybody's standing in everybody's shoes. So from a customer standpoint, our community really came out and supported us. I mean, that was the thing that was incredible through this, that the balance of why that whole last year of what we all did and the community did for us as well. The yoga of business that we had to do was just incredible.
Well, one thing I will say is that Ryan and I believe in this company super deeply, and we have invested an insane amount into this company, and no little piddly squat pandemic was going to stand in the way of us staying in business and being in business. And, Mare Island fought a cold, a civil, 2 world wars, Vietnam. And, if you ask people that worked on Mare Island, they'll tell you the rivet gun won the war, man. We're the ones that did it for everybody. And that's in our DNA as a company. And so there was no way we were shutting down unless we were told we had to shut down. I can't say we made money on a lot of those days, but we stayed open. And I think that resonated with people that, hey, we're gonna be here through thick or thin, one way or the other. We came up with some crazy creative ways to, the yard brew pickup party is one of the biggest events of the year for us. We couldn't do it. So we did a drive-through pickup party, and we literally did the same experience that you would do for the yard brew party. They pulled up, we checked them in. We actually washed their windshield for them. We were releasing the Mariano Guadalupe Vallejo, Mexican lager. And so we handed them a quesadilla as sort of a celebration of that.
And a churro.
A churro at the end. Mm-hmm. And we handed them a case of beer that we put into the back of their car. And then, like I said, we do a game at all of our yard brew parties. So we had a giant Plinko board that they could play from their car, and they could point it out. And then they guessed the number of old rusty Mare Island rivets in a giant jar. And then they pulled away. And people not only came through once to get their beers, they turned around, grabbed their kids, and came back through again because they hadn't been out of the house in 2.5 months. Yeah. So we really felt like we made lemonade out of lemons. There was some massive sacrifices made by everybody. It has been the hardest part, I'll say, from a business perspective. Businesses can deal with downturns. It's uncertainty that kills you. And that has been the hardest part for us is, oh, now you're all shut down. Oh, now you're reopened. Then people show up and they say, hey, you can reopen now. And we're like, yeah, but our employees are off in the unemployment hinterlands. And we only get to order food once or twice a week. So we can't just turn and be open tomorrow.
Turn the faucet back on.
And so I'll also say this, and this is, I think, a testament to our partnership is, we did a lot of things, we did budgets, we executed a plan, et cetera, back in the early days. When the pandemic hit, it was purely from the gut for the last 9 months. And I would say in the last week or so, as the pandemic starts to lift here, we've told our employees, like, we've got our company back now. We can do some projections. We can start getting back to not making gut decisions and making good, solid business decisions so that everybody can just have some certainty.
Gut and gut-wrenching decisions.
Oh, God. Just painful.
But definitely the only thing we can say is we have an incredible staff. All the way from the management team to, all the way, not saying that that's a hierarchy, but all the way down to everyone at the retail locations. They've not only come back, during their furloughs, we did special discounts on food, deeper discounts for them to be able to have some food options. They kept coming in and said, when you guys are ready, we want to be back. And, we've pretty much retained every employee through and now brought them back twice because this is the second shutdown. And, the best thing is they've drank the sauce and they believe in damming the torpedoes with us.
Yeah, we have kind of a long-term plan. One of the things we did when the pandemic hit is we said, okay, one of our things has been to increase our to-go business. So here's our opportunity to do that. And that will live through beyond this. We've started feeding, delivering food actually down to the industrial core where there's over 1,000 employees down there working on the ships that have come into Mare Island for Mare Island Dry Docks and for Factory OS. It's something we had always thought about doing. And so we executed that during the pandemic. And I think it will pay dividends in the long run, even though this was not stuff we planned on executing this year.
Yeah, it enabled us to keep more employees and get more people off the bench and kind of get more people off unemployment. But just trying to think of ways that, which is great for a brewing company, is the brand can be diverse. Even though beer is our main widget, we do events, we do beer clubs, we do, we have food, we've got music, there's many avenues that we can do. So, we just, again, having to get into pandemic business yoga, had to figure out ways to make revenue and maintain the business for the employees and to be here on the other side.
One employee story for you that this is literally one of my top 5 moments in my business career. Kieran, who's one of our favorite employees, he's kind of semi-retired, but he's been working for us part-time. Great guy. walks in one morning and he's like, hey, Kent, can I talk to you? And I'm like, ooh, yeah, sure. So I go out there and he rolls up his sleeve and he had gotten a Mare Island Brewing Company branded tattoo on his shoulder. And it is not small.
And it's his first tattoo.
It's his very first tattoo.
But I mean, here's a photo for you to see.
Oh yeah.
He is extremely
rocking it
about it. We have, we've got many employees that have tattoos, and we've always said, whoever gets the first branded tattoo, we'll pay for it. And Kieran never had a tattoo or ever said anything, and then he came in out of the blue and has a beautiful Mare Island Brewing Company.
Yeah,
I mean, you're doing something right with your brand and with your employees if they're willing to put that in. The other thing is Kieran, if you're listening, you have a job for life.
Yeah. That is definitely
awesome.
Yeah, that's job security. Right?
Yeah, sweet.
And we're making it standard for new employees. The only thing they get to pick is the size. We get to pick a location.
Yeah, if you want to interview, you better get it done before you walk.
Yeah. I'll come in with a muscle shirt on.
If you already have the Mare Island Brewing Company, foot in the door. Yeah, a tattoo.
Sweet. So when you're not here, where can we find you? What do you guys like doing on your free time, if you have any free time?
I'll answer first. I'm in an interesting phase of life. The business and pandemic, obviously, aside, is a large portion of the mental capacity. But my wife and 2 kids, we live here in Vallejo. So my oldest son is 3.5. My youngest just turned 1 in November. So, there's a lot of growth going on in personal and business at the same time. So a lot of it is I really enjoy being a dad, enjoy bringing my kids on the weekend down here and kind of showing them the ropes. Besides, what kid doesn't like to jump on a forklift at 3.5 years old, see some shiny stainless steel. But yeah, as far as I met my wife at a restaurant, so we love food. We, when we could go out, and that was definitely our way we celebrated and enjoyed life. But now it is just kind of I don't want to say hunkered down, but really maintaining the family and kind of making sure that I have the mental capacity to come to work. Yeah. And how about you, Fortner? What do you love to do? Long walks on the beach?
It's a nice part of our partnership is we're both, I think, very dedicated fathers and very into our families. And so my children are older than Ryan's are. My son just turned 16 and is getting his driver's license, which is a harrowing experiance.
I won't even let on the forklift yet.
And my daughter is in 7th grade. So I'm in a slightly different space, but I think both Ryan and I just spend a lot of time with our families. And during the pandemic, I'll say the pandemic has had a slight blessing in its sort of forced family time that has turned out, wow, we really do like hanging out with each other. And so that's been a really interesting part of it. But I'm also an avid skier and I spend as much time in the mountains as I possibly can. But that has been few and far between with everything we've had going on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any specials you guys would like to plug just for the listeners? Anything of interest that you can think of?
I think the biggest thing is join the club, be a yard bird.
Yeah.
Come down. And what we always say is, we are expanding into wholesale. So you can find us in multiple stores throughout the Bay Area. What we're really trying to do is all of those cans out there is to bring it back to Mare Island, bring it to Vallejo, come check out the history, sip and enjoy the beer at our ferry tap room and see what we have to offer here. Because, with Vallejo, it's centrally located in the Bay. It's very easily to get here with the ferry system, the interstates that come through here. We just really love you to come and check out Vallejo and enjoy the history.
And I'll reiterate that it's not just amongst the Yardbirds, but the Yardbirds is the main way. Is we do a series of events throughout the year, and we've planned them for this year. We pushed them later in the half of the year because of the pandemic, but we do a historic brew cruise, which is really fun around Mare Island and talk about the history and drink beer and eat tacos. We do a seafood boil. We do the Yardbird parties. We do the holiday open house. We have Pedal Fest, which is a crazy bike race all throughout the island. That's not actually a Yardbird event. That's something that's open to the public, but we're the main sponsor of it. And I think if people look us up, don't just drink our beer, come experience the island both today and get a sense of yesterday through us. and we will feel like we have done our job. I mean, we certainly want to make money. We certainly are proud to employ 40 plus people. But at the end of the day, if we can uphold the heritage for the next generation through beer, that's a mantra that we live by, and that I feel very blessed to be the steward of this history and this heritage that we celebrate.
And craft beer is just such a great medium that for some reason, the younger generation, everybody's TikToking, tweeting, twitching, and not really paying attention to anything. It's so quick and fast, and it's a throwaway society in essence. And a lot of what's getting lost is the history and the yesteryear, and kind of the getting back to the family, and the talking and telling stories and being storytellers. And so that's kind of a lot of what our responsibility is we're kind of connecting the past with the newer generation that's not necessarily spending time in an Encyclopedia Britannica. Do they even do those anymore? I don't even know. It's just Wikipedia Britannica at this point.
Right.
But so it's definitely it's something that we're trying to be as the stewards of yesteryear and Mare Island and Vallejo's history.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. This is a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us.
It's always fun to relive the partnership and the founding and where we're going. So thank you.
Awesome.
It makes the crazy have a better hum. That's for sure.